Last week on the podcast, we talked about creating demand for your services, or what we call a demand engine. Getting leads is a huge part of being a freelancer. Getting leads consistently is a huge part of being a freelancer, but getting leads is not the finish line when it comes to breaking multiple six figures. It is merely the starting line, because this is where the challenge really begins. As you break into six figures, trying to break into the multiple six figures, the game changes from how do I get clients to how do I protect my most valuable resource, which is my time, to not just get clients, but get the right clients. Most freelancers mess this part up. As you start building demand for your services and you're finally getting leads and clients and it starts to feel like things are finally starting to click, you never actually make that transition, that leap from any client to the right fit client. So you end up getting on the phone with anybody who will give you time, talking over project details, wasting time with tire kickers, talking with people you know you shouldn't be talking to, and then you end up saying yes to the project out of just guilt for it, or a scarcity mindset, or just fear of losing the deal because you don't know what tomorrow brings. And so you end up with all these nightmare projects, ones with endless revisions, tons of scope creep, clients who are not happy no matter what you do, no matter how far you bend over backwards, they're still not happy with the work. And ultimately, you get burned out. So your creativity takes a hit. So your actual final product takes a hit as well. And not only that, what's worse is every bad fit client you say yes to, it's taking up a counter slot for those good fit clients. So you're working with fewer and fewer of the good fit clients, which means your portfolio is taking a hit. And when you do actually work with those good fit clients, the ones you actually want to work with, you don't have the energy or creativity to actually fulfill on it because you're burned out. So what ultimately happens is you end up burning out and going back to a day job because it's easier, or you end up taking a step back, taking some time for yourself, and watching your income take a hit as well. Now, as you break six figures, you're trying to break into multi-six figures, you work really hard to create the demand to get there. You know those freelancers out there who stay completely booked solid just from word of mouth? That's the people that I'm talking about. Those are the people who barely try and they have endless demand. If that is you, now you need to filter that demand, because at this stage, your reputation is everything. Every single project, no matter who you're working with, every single project takes time, takes energy, takes focus, takes mental bandwidth, takes creativity. And you have to accept that not everyone who reaches out to you, not everyone who's interested in working with you deserves that. Not every single person on this earth deserves your time, deserves your focus, deserves your energy, deserves your creativity. It's time to protect that. So in this episode, I want to walk you through how to define who exactly is a good fit for you and who's not, how to pre-screen the leads before they ever touch your calendar so you're never talking to bad fit leads in the first place, how to qualify people on your discovery calls like a pro so that you're not wasting your time with bad fit leads. You can cut those off early if they happen to trickle through onto your calendar, how to actually say no without feeling guilty, which is a huge sticking point for most freelancers. And if you can actually pull this off, you're going to get fewer bad fit leads, better clients, a shorter sales cycle, meaning that people that reach out to you close faster, and a calendar that's filled with the kind of the work that actually lights you up, stuff you actually want to do, not the stuff that drags you down and burns you out. So to do this, I'm going to walk you through 5 steps to actually make this happen. So before we get into that, if this is your first time listening to the show, hi, I'm Brian Hood. This is the Six Figure Creative Podcast. This is a podcast for creatives who want to earn more money from their creative skills without selling their soul. If you're a freelancer, you're offering freelance services, you want to break into multi-six figures, this is the podcast for you. So like I said, we got 5 steps here. The first one is define what we call your hell yes client. The hell yes client is the person who is exactly qualified and who is unqualified. Most people don't stop to think about this. Who do I actually want to work with? What does a perfect fit client look like? If I could only work with this one type of client for the rest of my life, what would that client look like? And I don't mean like, we've talked about niching down. This is not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about what are the criteria that make someone actually a good fit for you before you ever sit down and actually talk to them? Think about it as like a client filter. What does the perfect fit client look like as far as their industry? What sort of budget range do they have? Or what's the company size? If you're B2B, what kind of company size you work with? What are their values or their attitude? How hands-off are they versus hands-on? Do they want to be super collaborative? Do they want to have their hands in it? Or do they want to step back and let you be the professional? And the big thing is, do they fit your process or do they fight your process? A couple episodes back, I talked about how to create a service that actually scales. A service that scales is a process you have your clients follow. You are the expert, right? The worst clients want you to adapt to their process versus them adapting to your process. So again, you just want to think through these sorts of things and list out the things that a perfect fit client have. On the flip side, you also want to create a list of your red flags for your non-ideal clients. What are all the bad fit clients show you again and again and again? What are the common criteria that they have? It could be that they don't understand what their own goals are. It could be that they don't have a respect for your time. It could be that they have vague answers for everything. It could be that they're asking for discounts. It could be that they don't even understand how long the process should take. If you hear quotes like, this should be quick, this should be easy. In my background as a music producer, anytime I had a band reach out to me asking for a quote for a project, especially like a full-length album, and the band's like, this should be easy, this should take 2 days max. And I know as a professional who does this for a living, it should take no less than 15 to 20 days. Red flag, deny, go away. The reason this is the first step is because a lot of the freelancers that we work with, especially on the client acquisition side, is they never really thought through this. And so they're getting on sales calls or discovery calls, whatever you want to call them. They're getting on discovery calls with people, and then they're getting no's from clients, usually based on pricing is a good example of this, where the freelancer is too expensive for the client. And when you dig into it and you look at the people they're talking to, and you look at all of the things on their pre-call questionnaire, which we'll talk about in a second, you realize that the clients who are saying yes, the very small percentage, are a certain company size, for example. Maybe there are 5 to 10 or more people in the company, or 10 plus, or 20 plus, or 50 plus, whatever the criteria are. And all of the people saying no, that is too expensive, are 5 and below, 5 employees or less. Or it could be that the projects that get drawn out into revision hell are all solopreneurs or small business owners where the founder works very closer with a freelancer. So there's a lot of emotion in it. There's a lot of fear in it versus working with a professional who has a clear vision for the project, who's not going to be emotional about it, which means it's usually going to be a larger company where you're working with a department head. These are examples of creating a qualified lead versus an unqualified lead. An unqualified lead, we don't even count those in sales metrics. With the clients we're working with, we only focus on qualified leads. Are people getting on the phone with you that are qualified? If they are, all your marketing is working great. Now we need to focus on closing the qualified leads on the sales calls. If all you're doing is getting on the phone with unqualified leads, there's usually a breakdown somewhere in the qualification process. And it starts with, again, defining what your hell yes client is. If you don't have a clear version of what that is, list out those things. What are all the ideal client indicators? And then what are all the red flag client indicators? Once you have a clear look at what that is, we get to the second step here, and that is pre-screening. I want you to drill this into your head. Questions before calendars. No one should ever have access to your calendar, your sales calendar, your discovery call calendar, your calendar to take you to lunch, your calendar to meet at your studio or at your office. No one should have access to that until they've filled out a questionnaire. So in order to stop wasting time with bad fit leads, create a pre-call questionnaire. You can call it an inquiry form, but it's going to ask key questions around these things: budget, their goals for the project, the timeline for it, and in certain industries, what the decision-making process looks like. So in B2B, it could be that the person that's filling the form out, it's not the actual decision maker. And in an ideal world, you're not talking numbers, and you're not going to get on the phone with a non-decision maker. You want to talk to the decision maker for the project. Or in some cases where there could be multiple decision makers, you don't want to have a great sales conversation with one person when they still have to go convince 4 other people about it. You want to try to get on the phone with everybody. It's going to slow your sales process down considerably. You're going to have a lower sales close rate. An alternative to budget, where if you don't want to ask their budget in the inquiry form, which can be effective or not effective, the best way to do that can be asking some other kind of qualifying criteria. It could be company size. It could be an indicator that says our projects start at $5,000 or our projects start at $10,000. Is this within your budget? Yes or no? You can also put questions in there around process, anything you think is potentially going to derail the project. So the goal is to make it clear who it's for and who it's not for. Who are you for? Who are you not for? Especially if you've niched down. Once you've built this inquiry form out, you can automate 80% of this or more in some cases. You can automate 100% of this if you have a good CRM. So you can create logic in the form so that if they answer certain things, you can bring up more questions. So if they say our budget is X amount, you can ask some follow-up questions to see if maybe there is other alternatives, or let them know maybe if their budget's below the certain threshold that you say, then you qualify and say our projects start at 10,000. It sounds like this is out of your budget. Do you still want to move forward, right? Once you have all these questions down, you can automate 80% of this qualification process. Most good form builders have logic built into them. Logic to either show or hide questions based on previous answers, which is helpful in some cases when you want to maybe, depending on one answer, you can ask additional questions for some follow-ups. But the better power is, depending on answers in a form, you can send them to a different page. So if they answered no, they aren't within the budget, you can send them to a rejection page, which we'll talk about later. And then only if they seem qualified based on the pre-call questionnaire, it immediately sends them to your calendar to book a call. Now, you need to be clever about this. If you're trying to auto-reject people, they're smart. They will see that they've been auto-rejected. And so they'll go back and they'll lie on the pre-call questionnaire in a lot of cases. Not every case, but in a lot of cases. So what will happen is they'll fill it out. They'll see they were auto-rejected. They'll go back through. They'll fill it out again. They'll answer the thing they know is the right answer just to get on your calendar, thus wasting time, thus breaking the qualification process. We use what's called a honeypot. We've worked with many clients on this. And that is where the rejection doesn't seem like a rejection. It can be something as simple as, thanks so much for filling out the questionnaire. I'll take a look at everything and get back to you in the next 24 hours. Something like that. But if you make it clear you have rejected them, they will go back and fill the form out again. So be smart with this. So you've created your hell yes list. You've turned that hell yes list into a pre-call questionnaire, an inquiry form. Now, number 3 is we want to actually qualify them on the call. And the last thing you want to do is get through an entire sales conversation only to realize at the end that they were unqualified. So there's a few points I have here. This is not a full-on sales training. We have other sales training and sales series. We have an entire sales series on this podcast if you want that. But this is going to be talking about from the perspective of how do you qualify people? If you've got plenty of calls coming in, plenty of great fit leads coming in, you're getting on the call with them, and you just want to make sure that they're a good fit, this is for you. And the mindset shift I want to give you before we even get into this is that this call is an audition for them, not just an audition for you. Obviously, the client is going to be sussing you out. They want to see if you're a good fit for what they have. It's a two-way street here. You're also judging them. You're also auditioning them, trying to determine, do you want to actually work with them or not? Do they qualify for you? You're not here to just convince them. You're here to assess the fit for the project. Are they going to actually be a good fit for you or not? So with that said, you have to lead the call. You don't let them lead the call. And this sounds mean or controlling, but it's really not. You have a process that you take your clients through to get an outcome that they want. So you need the exact same approach on the sales call. You have a process you take them through to decide whether or not it's a good fit mutually. And if you let the client take over and ask endless questions or things that are not important for the project or things that derail the conversation or go off on long tangents that are unimportant to the project, you're not doing them a service. You're not doing yourself a service, especially not yourself. So the first thing is you lead the call. Make sure your sales roadmap or your sales script or your sales outline, whatever thing you follow from call to call to call, the thing that keeps you on track, make sure the questions are not just about tasks or things to do or to-do lists, right? Make sure your questions are about outcomes and problems. What problems are they experiencing? What outcomes do they desire? Because remember, you sell an outcome. So if the outcome that they're looking for or the outcomes they're looking for do not match the outcome you can provide, you can cut the call off. And that'll happen more often than you think. When you realize that the outcome you offer people is not the thing that they're looking for, the thing that they truly need, even if they think they need it. And that's another good part of a good sales process is it's pulling out what they actually truly need, not what they just think they need. Next point of a good qualification process on calls is if you're in high demand, which anyone 6 figures trying to break into multi-6 figures, any of you, that is likely the case. If you're in high demand, bring up money early on the call. This will help you disqualify fast if people don't have the budget to work with you. Versus what a lot of people do, there's 2 bad ways of doing this. The absolute worst way of talking money on a call is you don't talk money on a call. You go through the entire sales conversation. You get to the end. You tell them you'll send them a proposal. You essentially hide behind the proposal. The money conversation never happens. You send them a proposal and then they ghost you. That's the most common way of getting ghosted and wasting your time. The second worst way of doing this is getting through the entire sales conversation, talking money at the end of the call, and then realizing it's like trying to bring water out of a rock. They're just broke. And so they don't have the budget for it. They won't have the budget for it for a long time. So this conversation shouldn't have happened in the first place. Well, at least you talked numbers on the call. You didn't hide behind a proposal. And at least you learned that this type of person that you talk to is unqualified. And you can see if this is the norm for this type of person or if this is just the outlier. But it was likely a waste of time. And that's why disqualifying early and talking money early is the better move. And you can bring this up tactfully. You don't have to be mean about it. You don't have to say, hey, do you have $10,000 in your bank account right now? That'd be kind of jarring and sort of funny. Don't do that. But the better way of doing it is, hey, I know you saw this on the pre-call questionnaire, but just before you get too far into this, our projects start around 5K. Obviously, this has to be a fit on both sides. And I want to make sure that we can actually give you what you're looking for. But before we get into all this, is that going to be within the realm of your budget, assuming it actually is a good fit? And they'll say yes or no. If they're just like, oh, there's no way, then you just say, okay, cool. Here's what we can do. I have your information. You have my information. When you feel like the budget is there, we can revisit this conversation. But for now, it would likely be a waste of our time, only because if we talk through all this and it's 2, 3, 4, 5 months, by the time you get the budget, things might have changed on your end or our end. So it's better to talk through the project again when you actually have the budget so that we can make a decision moving forward with the most up-to-date information and give you the most accurate price. And one final way of filtering out people on the sales conversation is making sure you talk through your process. This is an important part of any sales conversation, is making sure they understand your process. And then you figuring out, are they going to respect your process or not? I had to do this recently. We had a client we were talking to who's in the multi-million-dollar range per year that wanted our help with client acquisition. And I had to talk them through our process. They were wanting us to be in their Slack channels and do some of their own communication preferences according to their SOPs. And I just had to very clearly lay out, here's how we set up this program to scale. I follow my own advice. I eat my own dog food. This is how we set it up to scale. This is how we do communication channels. So when we have over 200 clients and one of our clients wants us to be in their Slack channel, can you imagine if 200 of our clients wanted that? It is not going to work. Here's how we do things. Here's how we work. If that doesn't work for you, completely understand. But if it does work for you, here's how we can move forward. And so they respected our fulfillment process. And so now they're a client of ours. But like I said earlier, this is an addition of them, not just yourself. Now we get to step number 4. So far, again, we have created our hell yes client list, our hell no client list. We've created a pre-call questionnaire. We've put in our sales process, different points to qualify people out of the sales conversation, preferably before the end. And step number 4 is just understanding that you have permission to say no. At any point, you can say no to your client. And I want you to normalize this. No is a complete sentence. No is a complete sentence. No. Whether it's holding your ground on specific terms that the client is requesting of you, or them pushing back about certain things that is in your process, or how you do things, or how your payment terms are, you can say no to any of that. Or whether you're just not that into them. You don't even want to work with them. Or they're just kind of like a so-so okay client. You could do it, but you'd be doing them a favor. You can just say no. Think about the opportunity cost. Every yes you say to a client that's not a great fit is taking up a slot in your calendar that's already in high demand for a client who would be a good fit. So unless there's some last minute slot you're trying to fill, why say yes to that client? This is a yellow flag lead. No is a complete sentence. That said, you don't just say no to the client and then hit end on the Zoom call. That would be funny. In that regard, no is not a complete sentence. Have a polite, confident script ready to let down those leads gently. So it could be something like this. Based on what I know and based on what we talked about, I can say I'm probably actually not a good fit for you. And I think it's because of X, Y, and Z. You guys need this project done by the state, or you guys need this sort of technology, or you guys need this sort of process. I don't really do that. So I have a couple other people who might be a better fit for that in mind. If you want me to send them your way, let me know. Or I can just send you their contact information, something like that. You don't have to offer the referral, especially if it's work for you to go in and actually look for who would be a good referral for a lead you don't actually want to work with. It's kind of a waste of your time. But if you had someone in mind, especially somebody who you're doing a favor, they need clients, they need leads, offer them up to that person. But at the end of the day, trust your gut. It is usually right. If at this point in the sales process, it already feels off, it's going to be 10 times worse when you're actually fulfilling on this. So number 4, you have permission to say no. No is a complete sentence. It's rude if you just use it as a complete sentence, but no is a option that you have and should be utilized. The more in demand you are, the more no's you should have for clients. And number 5, it's kind of a bonus, is just play into your scarcity. I saw a quote, I really liked it. Don't know who said it, but demand is power. So use it. Think about it. You've built all this demand up. That demand can be wielded as a power to make your business better, to make your life better, to make you more money. So there's a couple things you can do here. The first is add next availability on your website and in your sales process. This is what I did as I was booked up 3, 4, 5, up to 6 months in advance for my studio. You put on your website or near your inquiry form, something like, hey, now booking projects for August 2025 or July 2025. It sets your expectations up front. It filters out all of these people that are like, I need this done this week. It showcases your scarcity. And the best part about this is it will skyrocket your one call closes. I can tell you how many clients I closed. Even if they were looking for something soon, I would say, oh, you poor sweet summer child, I'm not available for 6 months. If you want on my calendar, it's going to be a 40% or a 50% non-refundable deposit. You don't have to pay it. However, as soon as someone comes to me that wants those dates, they will give me the deposit and then I'll be booked out 7 months in advance. So the sooner you give me your deposit, the sooner I can put you on my calendar. Does that sound good? Awesome. Instant close. Now, obviously I did not talk like that to them. Obviously I did not say it with that tonality, but in my head, that's basically what I'm thinking. You want me 2 weeks from now? Oh, it's like when you walk into that very fancy restaurant that's booked solid and you think you're going to get a table just from walk-in. The greeter gives you that shit-eating grin of, oh, you poor thing. You don't understand how popular we are. You can't walk into this restaurant. Everyone hates that feeling. So don't make your clients feel that way. Don't make your leads feel that way just because you're booked up. But it feels good as a freelancer. I can promise you that. Otherwise, when you're on a call with someone, there's usually not a great reason to take a non-refundable deposit or even a refundable deposit for that matter. There's no reason to take money at all. So usually there's a lot of, I got to think about it, or we're going to talk to 30 other freelancers, or we're going to sit on it and think about it. I don't know. I'll get back to you. And then they hit you up 6 months later, needing to do it next week. And by the way, at this point in your careers, if you're already over 6 figures, if you're trying to break into multi-6 figures, if you are especially at multi-6 figures and you're in high demand, you should likely be offering non-refundable deposits. The higher demand you are, the better terms you can set for yourself. If you're in low demand or no demand, you cannot do non-refundable deposits. You'll get way more no's than yeses. But as you get higher and higher demand, you should be doing non-refundable deposits, meaning if they cancel on you, you keep that money. And depending on how strict you want to be, if they change the dates on you, that money goes away too. If you're in really high demand, I did that a few times, not super often, but I did it a few times. Generally, what I would do is if they move the dates, I would move that deposit with them and then just try to fill the dates with another artist. What I did a few times when I did the non-refundable deposits, when the band rescheduled those dates, what I offered them was, hey, you rescheduled on me pretty last minute. I only have a month to fill these dates. So what I can do is if I can fill these dates up, I will move your deposit to the new dates. If not, your deposit is lost because I couldn't fill those dates because you didn't give me enough time because you moved last minute. So I was still pretty reasonable, but if the dates didn't fill, the band lost their deposit. So that's the first kind of bonus when it comes to playing into scarcity. The second is implement a minimum engagement rule. My background is music production, did that for a decade. My rule was a 3-song minimum. And it's even more prevalent now, but bands and artists between 2010 up through 2020, fewer and fewer EPs, fewer and fewer LPs or full-length albums, and more singles. And the problem with singles is they eat up a ton of time. They're a horribly inefficient way of recording, editing, producing, mixing, mastering songs. And so if every artist came to me for one song, it would essentially be a lot of back and forth, a lot of conversation, getting deposit, having a conversation about it, them coming to the studio, doing setup, all these things. It was just a big, massive waste of time. So I did a 3-song minimum. Whether you want to do 1 song or 3 songs, same price. You might as well come in with 3 songs. So depending on how you structure your business, what industry you're in, how you price things, how you structure things, you can do a number of things. You can do project minimums. So you can say, we start at $5,000 for our projects. You can do retainer minimums. You can say, I am only accepting retainers of 3 or more months. So if you're doing monthly retainers, you have a 3-month minimum engagement. You can do minimum day rates. For those of you who still do day rates, I don't love it, but you could just say, we have a minimum of $1,000 day rate. So if you book an hour of my time, it's gonna be $1,000. But the main takeaway of this episode is, if you wanna break into multi-6 figures, you gotta protect your time. It is your most valuable resource. It is your most scarce asset, especially as solopreneurs. As freelancers, we're generally just one of us. You might have an assistant if you're lucky. Maybe you have a partnership of some sort if you're unlucky. But if it's just you, you have very little time. So any waste of time, any tire kicker, anyone trying to get on your calendar, you've got to have ways of filtering those people out before they ever talk to you. So filter hard, set clear boundaries, and only work with people who match your energy and match your values, match your budget, and will actually be a joy to work with. By the time you get to this level, where you're doing this level of filtering, you should be the one who's the prize at this point, not the client. There's a certain point where the dynamic shifts. You can probably think about this with a few of the top people in your industry, where before it was, oh, I really want this client. This client's amazing. I'm going to work so hard. This client is the prize. If I win them, it's amazing, right? There's this shift over time as you build demand, as you build credibility, as you become the authority. There comes a time where clients are now looking to you as the prize, where, oh, if we could work with them, that would be amazing. Oh, they're booked out 6 months and they're this much money. Oh God, well, let's save up and let's go to this person. If you get to this level, remember, you are the prize, not the client. And I just say this to give you confidence. Freelancers, more than anything, lack confidence in most cases. There are some people who are cocky. There are some people who are overconfident, but that is rare in the freelance world. Most people struggle to actually own the level of talent that they have. Most people got to be as good as they are because they worked so hard, because they felt this void in their soul that they're not good enough. And so if that's how you've gotten so good at your craft, no wonder you're so bad at saying no to people. No wonder you're so bad at filtering people out. So remember, you are the prize, so act like it. If you are not the prize, or you're not at the point where your demand is so high, where you can filter people this hardcore, like I'm talking about in this episode, and your demand is not where it should be, this is actually where we can help. If you listened to last week where I talked about building a demand engine, this is mostly what we work with people on. We work with them on client acquisition. And the first thing we do with anyone we work with is we build them out a full continuous client marketing roadmap. And we essentially pitch this to you. And you take a look at this roadmap that we created for you, and you either say yes or you say no. If you say no, we refund you, we part ways. And that happens about 3% of the time right now. So far this year, actually less than that. So far this year, we have had 1 no and probably 50, 60 yeses. But if you say yes, we will actually coach you through implementing every single part of that roadmap. Every single thing that you've agreed to doing, every single point, every single part, we'll coach you through that one-on-one, unlimited help, until you have a client acquisition system built out that's bringing you in leads and clients. So if this sounds like something that might be remotely interesting to you, go to sixfigurecreative.com/coaching, fill out our pre-call questionnaire, see if you qualify or see if we disqualify you before we even get to offering our services to you, and use it as an education process on a good sales process. If you've never been through one before, we're not pushy, but we know what we got. So if you want more, just go to sixfigurecreative.com/coaching, fill out the short questionnaire, and see if we can help. So that's all I got for you this week. A little shorter episode, short and sweet, short-ish and sweet. And we'll see how long this edits down to. But next week, we'll continue the rest of the series. Until then, thank you so much for listening to the Six Figure Creative Podcast. Peace.